Hello everyone, welcome to MBA Karo. Today is day 28 of hot summer. We are into the last 3 days of this series and I am sure that you must have enjoyed this series. In today's class we are going to see questions on sentence fillers. So this was a topic which was introduced in CAT 2022 and it was asked last year as well. Now this is one of the easiest topics in VARC. The reason is you are given a paragraph and you have to end a sentence. You need to tell that in which blank would the sentence fit. Now if you talk about parajumbles, since you have to make an order, you might get confused between two of the options, two of the sentences, and also there are no options given. Okay, so it becomes quite challenging at times. If you talk about odd one out, since they are related to the same theme, sometimes it is difficult to figure out the odd one. Okay, and summary also, sometimes it might be challenging to differentiate between two close options. However, I find this sentence fillers to be comparatively easy than others because the same logic that we use for parajumbles, like use of pronouns, introduction of some topic, giving examples, etc. So those factors help us determine that where would one insert that sentence. So let's solve some questions on this topic. If you are new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel for great content on MBA preparation. So we are on day 28. After this we will have 2 more classes for this series, and please watch all these 30 videos and that will boost your preparation for CAT and other MBA entrance examinations. And in case you wish to have a structured preparation for CAT, you can enroll in our CAT batch and get 20% off using the code HOT by the end of this month. So try to solve the questions, answer the questions on your own, and in the end comment in the video that how much you scored out of the total questions that were present. And first you solve the equation, then solve the questions, and then try to look at the solution and match your answer. So let's begin with the first question. So it says that there is a sentence missing in the paragraph below. This is the standard, that is the instruction for this question. Look at the paragraph and decide in which blank option 1, 2, 3 or 4 the following sentence would best fit. So they give you options like this: option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4. So thus far it has not become a type in answer, but I believe that it is possible that in future they might convert into a type in answer, because you have 4 standard options, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you need to tell that in which blank would the sentence fit. Okay, so this is the sentence. It says the soft warm interior melted in the mouth, a burst of flavors and textures. So it talks about the interior of some place. Okay, so let's read the first one. It says the aroma of freshly baked bread wafted through the air, tempting passers-by into the bakery. So basically it is talking about a bakery. Dash, one sentence missing. Crusty loaves lined the shelves, their golden exteriors inviting a bite. So it talks about the loaves of breads. Okay, each bite carried the labor of skilled bakers who kneaded the dough with love and expertise. The bakery became a haven of bread enthusiasts, a place to satisfy their cravings. Now this entire passage talks about describes a bakery and its aroma and its like how did the bakery appear and how was it smelling, etc. Okay, now we need to insert this sentence: the soft warm interior melted into the mouth, a burst of flavors and textures. So now when we talk about this warm interior, okay, first it appeared that it talks about the interior of the bakery, but on careful observation you understand that it refers to the bread, like the softness of the bread. The soft warm interior melted in the mouth. So melted in the mouth means the person is taking a bite of the bread, and as a result it is appearing so soft and warm, and there are bursts of flavors and textures. So that means it is very well flavored. Okay, so it means that the person has eaten the bread. Now aroma of freshly baked bakery, so it is talking about the aroma of this bakery. crusty loaves lined in the shells, their golden exteriors inviting a bite. Each bite carried a labor of skilled bakers. Now this is sort of a concluding sentence. The bakery became a heaven of bread enthusiasts, a place to satisfy their cravings. Unlikely that the sentence fits here. Okay. Now when we talk about the soft warm interior, that means the person has already tasted the bread, okay, or eaten the bread and then realized that how soft the bread is. Now this talks about the interior of the bakery, that the aroma of the bakery. Crusty loaves lined the shelves, their golden exteriors inviting a bite. Now see, we have said that this sentence would come once the author has tasted the bread. Okay, now it does not appear the author has tasted the bread here, because it talks about this crusty loaves, so it still describes that loaves are lined in shelves. So it has to be either 2 or 3. Each bite carried the labor of skilled bakers who kneaded the dough with love and expertise. And now if you see among 2 and 3, if we put after 2, right, after let's say in this blank, so this does not seem to be a connection with bakers. See, this has described the bakers, the skilled bakers, and how did they knead the dough. Okay, if you put it here, it says that the soft warm interior melted into the mouth. Now they have described about the loaves, that how the loaves were present, and once this has stated, there is talking about the burst of flavors and textures, and each bite carried the labor of skilled bakers. So like this appears to be the appropriate fit, wherein the person enters the bakery, sees witnesses the aroma of the bakery, then finds these crusty loaves, tastes them. So he tastes them and says that the bread was soft and warm, and each bite suggested that how skilled the bakers were, and then it describes the bakery, concluding that the bakery is a superb place for the bread enthusiasts. So it would fit in option 2. So these questions need to be, sometimes there would be obvious answers, at times you will have to use elimination to plug in the sentence. Next one, the earth has an iron core that is part liquid and part solid crystal due to gravitational pressure. Okay, so it talks about the core of earth. Dash, a compass works by detecting and responding to earth's natural magnetic fields. Does not resonate with it. Dash, it is believed that movement in the liquid outer core is what produces the earth's magnetic field. Then, like all such fields, the earth's magnetic field has 2 poles, north and south. These magnetic poles are slightly off, and all those describes the magnetic fields. And however, the magnetic and geographic poles are close enough to allow a compass to serve a valuable navigation tool. Now iron core, very unlikely that it will describe the iron core after this this statement, because it has already described the 2 magnetic poles, and that would not make sense here. Okay, now if you look at this, it says like all such fields, so all such fields may refer to magnetic field. Okay, now if you put this sentence in this, it breaks the link. All such fields, which fields? Magnetic field. Okay, so it has to be between 1 and 2. Now if you look more closely, it talks about there is the iron core that is liquid and solid, like half part is liquid, half part is solid crystal. And if you look at this sentence, it is believed that the movement in the liquid outer core. So if you insert the sentence here, it says that the iron core has 2, it is partially liquid, partially solid. Now this particular sentence describes that how earth's magnetic field is produced. It is by the movement in the liquid outer core. So this liquid outer core has been defined here, that the earth core is half liquid, half you would say solid. So again, this sentence would fit in option 2. When it comes to evolution, pleasure is developed deployed as a bait as much as for immediate reward. So it talks about like how in evolution pleasure is used as a bait. So let's see the paragraph. It says the popularity of pets, animals, films, TV shows and books suggests that interaction with animals derives from deeply rooted human need. So interaction with animals is that's a human need that leads us to interaction with animals. Recent findings that companion animals contribute positively to many people's physical and emotional health do not in themselves explain why animals exert such effects. Rather, they suggest that the animals have long been associated with human well-being. So it says that there is a deep root between human need and interaction with animals. Okay, so it is not that just a mere coincidence. It's an innate nature of humans to be connected to animals. Okay, and then it says that there is a recent study also which says that these companion animals contribute positively to many people's physical and emotional health, and it also suggests that the animals have long been associated with human well-being. So again, long association with human well-being, that's given here. The same goes for the simple pleasure so many of us derive from observing and interacting with animals. So we also get the pleasure by interacting and observing with observing and interacting with animals. Pleasure is not something that a natural selection doles out without a reason, and we would expect that reason to be intimately connected with maximizing fitness. Okay, now see, if you look at this particular sentence, it talks about pleasure, like the pleasure that humans get by interacting with animals. So especially, like you must have seen that people love keeping pets, right? So there is something associated with it, that why people keep pets, and it is it says that there's a human trait that people are attracted towards nature, and its research has shown that it is not just some recent development, but since long past people have been like the animals have been associated with human well-being. Okay, now it says that and people find pleasure in observing and interacting with animals. Now it says when it comes to evolution, pleasure is deployed as a bait as much as for immediate reward. Now if you look at this sentence, it basically talks about pleasure. Okay, now these two sentences primarily talk about association with animals. Okay, the same goes for simple pleasures. What are simple pleasures? Now if you try to put in this sentence, it does not make sense. When it comes to evolution, pleasure is deployed as a bait. Okay, so and then it says the same goes with the simple pleasures. Okay, so this has to be with so when we say contribute positively, okay, and physical and emotional health, the same goes for simple pleasures. So these talks about this long-term association with animals, and this sentence talks about simple pleasures. Then if you look at this, so it does not fit here. The same goes with simple pleasures. When it comes to evolution, pleasure is deployed as a bait as much for immediate reward. Okay, so again, like it does not resonate here. If you try to put in the third blank, it does not resonate that how it is a bait or something. So basically it looks like an outlier sentence, isn't it? It does not look like fitting in the mid of the paragraph, because it talks about a different tangent, that pleasure is deployed as a bait for immediate reward. Okay, so that's what it talks about. So probably this could come in the end, because first of all we talk about the association of animals with human beings, and then it says that like we get simple pleasures by observing these animals, and also then it further goes on saying that pleasure is not something that is natural selection, and without a reason. It is there has to be reason behind it, and this probably gives the reason that pleasure is deployed as a bait for immediate reward. So that is the reason that why we get pleasure in doing things. So the answer would be option 4. That best fits the in the passage. If not a slave, then not a master, that is democracy, or at least one key aspect of it. Okay, so we have to fit in this democracy sentence and try to fill where it fits. Okay, now if we look at the sentence, it says democracy implied a political golden rule. What you do not want done to yourself, do not try to impose on others. What you do impose on others, submit to yourself. So democracy, basically it describes democracy as that what you want others to do to you, so you need to impose the same thing on others. Okay, those who wish not to have consent trampled upon must not be party to such trampling themselves. So basically this and this sentence, they talk about the same thing, that the definition of democracy, that how you want yourself to be treated, you need to treat others the same way. Okay, now if we see the next one, it says that there is no separation of people into the categories of those born naturally to freedom and those born, as in Aristotle politics, with slave-like traits and who are unable to live on any higher plane than subservience and unintelligence. Okay, so it says there is no separation of people into different categories. Okay, so it says if not a slave, then not a master. Okay, so that's what it talks about, not a slave, not a master. Now here if we see the traces of slave and master, okay, it says that with slave like traits and naturally to freedom, these talk about the masters, the people who are born naturally to freedom, so they are the masters, and people with slave like traits. Okay, so this particular sentence talks about this master slave concept. So either it has to be 3 or 4. Now it is says that is democracy, so it should, like, if you think of a logical structure, it should link something to democracy as well as this master slave trait. Now first sentence, if you look at the very first sentence, it talks about democracy, then this also describes democracy, like the same, you can say that it is a sort of restatement of the thing, right? It is restating the thing, which is saying that like what you do not want to done to yourself, do not try to impose on others. And this also basically says the same thing, do not have consent trampled upon, must not be party to do such trampling themselves. So these two sentences technically talk about the very same thing. So same thing has been expressed in these two sentences, but just with slight change of words. Okay, so that possibly means that like they both describe democracy. And then it says if not a slave, then not a master, that is democracy, or at least one key aspect of it. So it ideally should fit here, because these two talk about democracy. What is democracy? Okay, what is the rationale behind democracy? That you do that things that suit you. So that's what democracy means. The second paragraph also, the second sentence also talks about the same thing. Now this is some link which separates these two portions of the paragraph. So if talks about that if not a slave, then not a master, that is democracy, or at least one key aspect of it. Then it goes on defining that there is no separation of people into these two categories, the master and slave category. So it would fit in option 3. I had found myself on unfamiliar ground. Doctors are poorly instructed in medicine's spiritual dimensions. So the author says that he had found himself on unfamiliar ground. So he found something which is not a familiar thing, and doctors are poorly instructed in medicine's spiritual dimensions. Basically, the author says that the people, these people are not, would say that the doctors are not on spiritual ground. So that's what the author talks about here. So let's see that where would it fit. We pronounce patients dead but are little involved in the worries after their afterlives. Yet a person's spirituality can be injured as their own body can. Sometimes a person's only support system is their religion. Other times it is how they reconcile their illness. If doctors cannot tap into that support and perspective, we do our patients a disservice. Okay. Now if you look at these sentences like we pronounce patients dead but are little involved in the worries of their afterlives. So that's what the author says, that when people like the doctors say that the patient is dead, right, we do not worry about their afterlives, right? We think that now the person is dead, so now he's gone out of the world, so people do not believe in that generally, right? Yet a person's spirituality can be injured as their body can. Now yet is a contradictory word, so it basically connects with this sentence. Okay, so it means that very likely that we cannot have second blank as the answer. Now next it says that sometimes a person's, so these two sentences are obviously sometimes and other times, suggest that they come one after the other, no sentence in between. If doctors cannot tap into that support and perspective, okay, doctors cannot tap into that support. Which support, right? It talks about that person's only support system is their religion. Okay, so if doctors cannot tap into that support system, that means the religious support, we do our patients a disservice. So the patients are done disservice. Okay, now I had found myself on unfamiliar ground. Doctors are poorly instructed in medicine's spiritual dimensions. Okay, now if you look at it, so it has to be either just before this sentence which talks about doctors, or it may be after this also, right? It may be here, here, or here. But if you look at this, he says that he found himself on unfamiliar ground. Doctors are poorly instructed. So he has already discovered this fact that doctors are not into this spirituality. So it seems unlikely that it would fit here. So it has to be between first and third. Okay, so let's see that if we can. I had found myself on unfamiliar ground. Doctors are poorly instructed. Sometimes a person's only support is their religion. Now this does not make sense. Like if you put in sentence 3, it does not make sense. Even if it was just here, we could still say that this could be a linking sentence. But if you put in blank 3, it does not make sense here. But if you look in the beginning of the paragraph, it says I had found myself on unfamiliar ground. So the author may himself be a doctor, okay, because it is like here he says that we do our patients a disservice. So that means the author is likely a doctor, and he agrees that we do not believe in afterlife and do not do justice to the patients. So possibly that the sentence might fit here. I had found myself on unfamiliar ground. Doctors are poorly instructed in medicine's spiritual dimension. So that's what he talks about, and then he talks about that how doctors are. Now this is an introductory sentence that introduces that doctors are poorly instructed in medicine's spiritual dimension, so they not look at the spiritual aspect. Then here he talks about that spiritual aspect, like we pronounce patients dead but are little involved in the worries of their afterlives. So this is the introduction, and how it is done has been described in the coming sentences. So option 1 is the best fit for this sentence. I hope you are enjoying this session, so please do like this video and do share it with your friends. Let's move on to the next one. This one is basically on Wright brothers, okay, about the flight. Reporters left convinced that their prior skepticism was warranted and the Wright brothers were ignored yet again. Okay, so they were ignored yet again, that means they must have been ignored before also. 6 months later, they invited the press in to attend their first flight of 1904. Unfortunately, mechanical problems and poor winds prevailed all but a short airborne skip. In return, the brothers avoided the press for the remainder of 1904 and most of 1905, instead focusing on achieving a powered flight that in no way could be misinterpreted as a mere hop. At Huffman Prairie outside Dayton, Ohio, they progressed further and further until the fall of 1905. They were making long flights of 20 minutes or more. So basically this describes the event wherein these people, Wright brothers, I'm sure that you must have heard of Oliver and Wilbur Wright. they were the ones who invented airplane. Okay, so it talks about the flight that when they did. So it says 6 months later they invited the press to attend their first flight, and unfortunately there were some mechanical problems, and later on it goes on to say that they progressed further. So that means initially there were mechanical problems, they failed, and eventually they succeeded in flying the airplane successfully for at least 20 minutes. Okay, now the sentence says that reporters left convinced that their prior skepticism was warranted and the Wright brothers were ignored yet again. So that means we should look at a sentence wherein it talks about the failure of flying the airplane. Now 6 months later it makes this sentence and like connecting to a very different story, so it unlikely fits here. Unfortunately, mechanical problems and poor winds prevented all but a short airborne skip. Reporters left convinced, if we put here, it does not talk about the unfortunate incident. Okay, in return, now if you see this sentence carefully, it says in return the Wright brothers avoided the press. So it has to be like something related to the press. They are avoiding the press. Okay, so that means they had a tussle with the press. Maybe the media was spreading news which demotivated them that the Wright brothers have not been successful. So if you look at this sentence carefully, this probably makes a valid point here that this says that in return the brothers avoided the press, and it says reporters left convinced that their prior skepticism was warranted. So that means that the reporters were skeptical that the Wright brothers were not see, at last it says that the Wright brothers were successful. So reporters were always skeptical about the Wright brothers, and it says that they were convinced that the prior skepticism was warranted. That means the reporters were of the opinion that the Wright brothers may not have built a very successful plane. So now they were convinced after this incident, and hence they would avoid the reporters. So it makes sense here. There were mechanical problems. So mechanical problems related and poor winds, they prevented the flight. Now when the flight was prevented, reporters felt that their skepticism was correct, and now what happened was the reporters were skeptical and the Wright brothers avoided the press. So the sentence that fit will be sentence 3. Philosophers such as Socrates, Plato, Aristotle and Xenophon were not fans. They believed sophistry to be a lowly endeavor designed to sound deep. Okay, so they talk about some kind of philosophy which they call it sophistry. While they note Plato's skepticism of sophistry, they believe clever rhetorical tricks used by sophists were necessary for a democracy to function. Initially, sophists secured wealthy clients. In exchange for payment, they taught education and rhetoric as well as music and other arts. Socrates sang the praise of truth. Okay, alone, his student Plato thought sophist rhetoric manipulated audiences. Sophistry could never lead to Sophia. Okay, so you do not need to worry about what is sophistry, what is Sophia. Okay, so there is some philosophy, like some sophistry might be some philosophy. So even if you do not know about it, that's perfectly fine. You want to read about this, you can go and read about what is sophistry and what is Sophia that it is leading to. So they note Plato's skepticism of sophistry. So philosophers such as these were not fans. They believed sophistry to be a lowly endeavor designed to sound deep. So they note Plato's skepticism of sophistry. They believe clever rhetorical tricks used by sophists were necessary for democracy to function. Now, although it might look that they refers to philosophers, but it does not sound with the same connotation, because here they are talking about Plato's skepticism. Okay, then it says unnecessary for democracy to function. Then how it is unnecessary? Initially, sophists secured wealthy clients in exchange for payment. So this also does not seem to be a position, because in exchange for payment, so they are wealthy clients, so probably they are charging these people. they taught education and rhetoric as well as music and other arts. So these were some philosophers. They had wealthy clients and they charged their clients, and they educated these people. Okay. So now it says that they were not fans. That means these people, these four philosophers that have been mentioned here, they did not like sophistry. So they were not fans. So that's what it means, that they were not liking this practice. So if you look at this sentence, they were not fans, and it says Socrates sang the praises of truth. Okay, so Sophia is basically praises of truth alone. His student Plato thought sophist rhetoric manipulated audiences. So these people believed that the sophistic practices were manipulating the audiences, and it also says that they believed sophistry to be a lowly endeavor designed to sound deep. So basically they were not fans. So this suggests that they felt that this practice was manipulative. So it connotes like if you look at these two, so the connotation comes same, कि they believed this practice was not a very good sounding practice. It was basically some practice which was to manipulate the people. Okay, so that's what is these people had a belief. Okay, so probably if you see sentence 4, this might fit here. These philosophers had a belief that this practice was manipulative, and then it says how. So it shows that Socrates sang this alone, and Plato was thinking of these as manipulative audiences. Sophistry could never lead to Sophia. So that was their belief. So it fits in option 4. If we had started working on this problem back in the 60s and 70s, we would have then plenty of time to effect a technological transition to renewable energy and other technologies that don't put greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So some problem we had to work in the 60s and 70s. Okay, I feel very sad. I feel that there has been a huge missed opportunity here. I feel somewhat mad because I think that people who knowingly spread disinformation bear a substantial share of blame. Okay, so the person is sad that there is misinformation. Now, unlikely that work on this problem. Okay, so that means the problem should be described. So it is not mentioned here. People have been hurt, property has been damaged, lives have been lost because of climate change, and I won't say that this was all preventable, but certainly a lot of it was preventable. Now this is like, although the paragraph is a big one and there are a lot of sentences involved, we can get a hint of it, right? So the author here says that the problem was preventable. So preventable means that like they could have taken some action and prevented it. So it says that this was all preventable, but certainly a lot of it was preventable. So it was not completely but majorly preventable. Now how? So it says this basically talks about how it was preventable. How could you prevent that problem? So if you plug in this sentence, it talks about that if we started working on this problem back in 60s and 70s, we would have had plenty of time to effect the technological transition to renewable energy. And then like if you continue this, and the really sad thing about is, if you read the scientific work from the 1970s, some of the scientists involved even explicitly say, well, some people are saying we should have we should wait and see what happens. So it says that the action was not taken in 1960s and 70s. Now if you see chronologically also, it talks about 1970s. So something that should have been done in 1960s and 70s, how to prevent the problem, it was that we would have plenty of time to effect technological transition to renewable energy. So they should have worked on renewable energy and other technologies that don't put greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So basically the author is talking about that they did not care about the environment back then. So 1960s and 1960s and 70s, they could have like if they had not worked on these technological advancements, rather focused on renewable energy, they would have saved the planet. Okay, so this talks about how it was preventable, and hence option 3 appears to be the appropriate blank wherein we can put this sentence. In some respects, this is good news for a predator which can't afford to wait hours to track its prey. So it has to be like some predator we are talking about, maybe some predator is targeting its prey, and we are talking about some good news. So we will have to see the sentence which talks about some good news here. This strategy called gradient search or chemotaxis works quite well if the DOR molecules are distributed in a well mixed fog, which is the end stage of a process known as diffusion. But diffusion occurs very slowly, so through mixing, thorough mixing can take a long time. In most natural situations, odors flow through the air in a narrow and sharply delineated stream or plume. Such plumes and the smells they convey travel much more quickly than they would by diffusion. But the news is not all good. Odor plumes are almost always turbulent, and turbulent flow makes searching by gradient wildly inefficient. Okay, so it talks about some process, okay, and I need to find that we need to find where this sentence fits. So odor plumes are basically odor molecules by that are carried in the wind. This is good news for predator which can't afford to wait hours to track its prey. This looks to be a tricky one, and we need to find that good news for predator. This strategy called gradient search or so it talks about the diffusion stage, like some gases diffuse in the atmosphere. So it says that the odor molecules are distributed in a mixed fog, which is the end stage of process known as diffusion. But diffusion so thorough mixing can take a long time. So let's look at this sentence. It says that in some respects this is good news for predator. Okay, so what is that good news? It says that predator which can't afford to wait hours, right? A person like if the predator is not, it can't afford to wait for long hours. Okay, so this is how we logically answer these questions, because at times the passages could be altogether different. Like for example, I'm not at all aware that what it is talking about, which odor, right? So it's some scientific process, or whether it is like who are the predators described here, difficult to get, right? Sometimes it could be philosophy based passages, some core philosophy, or it could be core science that one may not be aware of, or some processes that one might not be aware of. So in that cases we need to look at some logic. Now it says, so this gives us the hint that these predators can't afford to wait hours to track its prey. Okay, so they want things to be done in short time, isn't it? So they like short time because they can't afford to wait hours, so they have to look for short time. So it says that, now if you look at this, such plumes and the smells they convey travel more quickly than they would be by diffusion. So they travel more quickly. Okay, so it says that there is short time involved. Now if you look at others, this strategy, so it is not a strategy, so this is not talking about a strategy, so definitely it is not fitting here. So maybe the strategy was described before it. So it says that in a well mixed fog, which is the end stage of a process known as diffusion, but diffusion occurs very slowly. Now it says that this is a good news. It does not sound to be a good news. But if you try to put it here, it says the plumes and the smells they convey travel much more quickly. So it travels quickly, so that means there is a short time. In short time the odors travel, and this is a good news for predator. So this makes sense. But the news is not all good. See, it says the good news and then but is against this, right? It says there is a good news, but it is not all good, right? Some partially it is good. So easy one. Although, so do not try to find the meaning of the sentence. Like you do not need to dwell and check that what is plume, right? I do not know what is plume or what odor it is talking about. So that's generally we think of, we try to understand the passage. No, don't try to understand the theory, do not try to understand the philosophy or science behind it, right? That is not the purpose. That purpose is to find where this sentence would fit. And this was a very easy question, right? Initially it appeared that okay, what kind of theory it talks about? It talks about some diffusion, right? And it says that mixing of gases in fog, etc. So difficult to understand. But here it says this is good news because it is of short time, and it says more quickly, so that means this is a good news. And then it says but the news is not all good. First it says it is good news, and then it is contradicting it, saying that it is not completely good, it is partially good. Odor plumes are always turbulent, and turbulent flows make searching by gradient wildly inefficient. So the answer is option 3. So although the passage was nowhere to be understood, like it was very difficult to understand, but still we could plug in the sentence. Okay, so now again this looks to be a tough one. It says that many of HAT's solution for parents, adolescents, educators and big technology firms are reasonable, including stricter content moderation policies and requiring companies to take user age into account when designing platforms and algorithms. So these solutions are reasonable. Okay, so they have strict guidelines for content moderation, etc. Two things can be independently true about social media. First, there is no evidence that, now see, this looks like an introductory sentence. Okay, I don't think that it would fit in here, isn't it? Of course, like if you have some reading habits, you understand that this does not align with it, right? So it talks about some solutions, and this does not make sense with it. Okay, first, there is no evidence that using these platforms is rewiring children's brain or driving an epidemic of mental illness. And second, that considerable reforms to these platforms are required given how much time young people spend on them. Okay, others such as age-based restrictions. Now see, again this is a simple one, although the paragraph looks big, and also this is something which is a familiar topic. Okay, so previous one was unfamiliar, unheard of. Now this is social media, you can think of problem solution. Many of HAT's solutions, so there is some solution. Now here there is describing the problem. There is no evidence that these platforms is rewiring children's brains, and the considerable reforms to these platforms are required. So it talks about that there have to be reforms. Now if you look at this sentence, this talks about reforms. Many of the solutions for are reasonable. So it talks about reforms, it provides these reforms, the solutions. So it is a problem solution structure. We discussed when we did a first class on RCs and also in parajumbles that often sentences have this structure, like one sentence gives the problem, the next sentence gives solution for the same. So previous sentence gives the problem, this sentence gives the solution. And if you read the next sentence, it says that others. So others means many of these solutions, other solutions. Okay, so others refer to other solutions. So these are restrictions, etc., etc., etc. A third truth is that now two truths have been described, their solutions have been given, and then third truth, and then all like obviously others can be put later on. So it would be in sentence 2. So it talks about these reforms, okay, and others refers to other solutions. So many of these solutions are these, and others such as age-based restriction and ban on mobile devices are unlikely to be effective in practice, or worse, could backfire given what we know about adolescent behavior. So it says that these are reasonable, many are reasonable. If you see the structure, many solutions are reasonable, others are ineffective. Okay, so most of the solutions that this person has given are reasonable, and then others are ineffective. So it comes before this sentence, hence blank true. I hope you are enjoying this session, so please do like this video and do watch this entire series. That will help you boost your preparation for CAT. Okay, so this is about history. So I've picked passages from different genres and from the popular sources, like you have Aeon, Psych, right? I've used all those sources to create these questions, and so that you get the familiarity of the topics, the range of topics that you encounter, like history, psychology, philosophy, science and tech, business, etc. Okay, and understand that you need not master all these genres. For example, I may not understand psychology very well, I may not be very good at philosophy, I may be good at science and tech, I may be good at business awareness, but I may not be good at some of the genres. But the thing is, try to understand the structures of the passages, like problem has been given, then a solution would be presented. Okay, similarly we saw these, the previous one, which was that odors, right? One does not know that chemical process, but seeing the structure of the sentence, we were able to fit in the sentence. Okay, so here's the next one. It talks about this history. It says, originally from what is now Germany, these Saxons became one of the dominant groups in Britain. Okay, so who then were the groups that lent Anglo-Saxon its name? So these are Anglo-Saxons, their names. The Angels were one of the main Germanic peoples from modern day South Denmark and northern Germany to settle in Great Britain. Okay, so Anglo-Saxon, so Anglo-Saxons, Angels was one of the names. Okay, the first known mention of Angli was recorded by the 1st century Roman historian Tacitus. Just as the Angli settled in Britain, so too did the Saxons, along with the Frisians, Jutes and other lesser known people. Now see, it talks about this nomenclature of people, Anglo-Saxons. Okay, so the paragraph talks about how these people were known, named Anglo-Saxons. So the first part talks about Anglos, right? How these Anglos were named, that Angles were Germanic people, blah blah blah. So Angli, this name is mentioned, right? Just as Angles settled, so did the Saxons. So there were two communities. One was called Angles, one was called Saxons, and their name was mixed and it became Anglo-Saxon. Okay, so that's a simple structure. Now read this line. It says, originally from what is now Germany, these Saxons. Okay, so that means Saxons should have been mentioned before. Look at this sentence. It says Britain, so did the Saxons. So these, like, first of all it says that how did this name come up, then it talks about the different people, the Angles, Angli, right? They settled in Britain. Okay, so when these people settled in Britain, so Saxons also settled in Britain. Okay, just as Angles settled in Britain, so did the Saxons. Okay, now these Saxons settled, and this is said that originally what is now Germany, these Saxons. So that means these Saxons will refer to this here. Okay, became one of the dominant groups in Britain. So that means sentence 4. Easy one, because you just have to, you do not need to understand what is Anglo-Saxon, which country do they belong to. You do not have to understand history, right? If you are interested in history, you can read it, good. But the purpose is to find where would this sentence fit, and it is very easy to fit this sentence. Next, among the marketers of borderline personality disorder, for instance, is a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships. Okay, so we need to tell, we need to find a sentence that talks about this trait of pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships. If you look over the descriptions of the 10 main personality disorders in the DSM-5, you'll find that they all include interpersonal problems. Okay, see, there is no sentence before it. Okay, so definitely it has to be the introductory one. Now it says that all include interpersonal problems, so it says that it's a major issue. Schizoid personality disorder involves detachment from social relationships and a restricted range of expression of emotions in interpersonal settings. Symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder include this, and so on for antisocial personality disorder. So it talks about different kinds of disorders that have this thing called interpersonal problems. So basically, if you get the gist of this passage, it says that different psychological disorders have interpersonal problems, right? So it describes, one example is this schizoid personality disorder. Another example, it talks about symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder, and so on, antisocial personality disorder. So it has described 3 disorders where interpersonal problems are a major reason. Among the markers of borderline personality disorder, for instance, is a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationship. Now, see, it is very important to read things. When you read things, read a lot, right? You understand how the words are used in a sentence. Now, when we say for instance, right? Now, sometimes you start a sentence with for example. For example, dash 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 dash, or you can also write like this. For instance, see, there are 2 ways of writing for instance. Like you can write for instance, for example in the beginning, or you can write something here, for example in between, and this is a common structure. If you read, you understand that for example can be written in the beginning, it can be written by separated by a comma in between the sentence also, right? Now this sentence, if you talk about, it gives the example. What is the example it is giving? It is giving example of intense interpersonal relationship, right? Pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationship. If you read the very first line, it talks about that the personality disorders have this interpersonal relationship problem. So now if you see, all these are examples, right? Schizoid personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and so on, means that we are giving 1 example, 2 example, 3 example, and so on, right? Now whenever we use for example, we use in the first case, so this should ideally fit here. Now if you see, if you look at the descriptions of the 10 main personality disorders, you will find that they all include interpersonal problems. For example, in border personality disorder, this is example 1. Okay, so whenever you give examples, you use the word for example or for instance with the first example. So example 1, this is example 2, right? This is example 3, and then the author gets tired and writes and so on, isn't it? So you do not use and so on in the beginning. You use and so on when you have already given 2-3 examples. So it's given first example, second example, third example. So whenever you give example, whenever you give the very first example, you use the word for example, then you give another example, then you give another example, etc. So for instance, this word is the key which suggests that it will fit in blank one. Okay, so this is how we do it. Now you do not know about any of these personality disorders, it does not matter. So that's what, like in verbal ability, it is not necessary that you know everything. Okay, so you may be good at some of the genres, you may not know other genres, but understanding the sentence structures, how sentences are structures, like how do you give examples. If you read, you understand that how the text is written when you give an example. So let's solve this next one. It says that that's what we have noticed, not only in our interview based research but also from other researchers in the field, media sources and police sources. So something has been observed, and what has been observed, let us see this. Potential victims really have to educate themselves on being alert. It's as simple as being aware of your surroundings and people lurking in the periphery of your vehicle. So something maybe like the passage talks about being alert of your vehicle. There are certain points where you are more vulnerable than others. When you get inside your vehicle, when you get outside of your vehicle, at traffic lights and at gas stations, that's when you are at the highest risk. So it says that there are some places where you are at risk. Okay, just being aware of those points, I think, can enhance victim safety. If you get that kind of gnawing feeling that something's about to go down, I would listen to that sixth sense. So it talks about sixth sense, that how you can be how you are vulnerable. Okay, that's what we have noticed, not only in our interview based research but also from our researchers in the field, media sources and police sources. So that's what we have noticed. So that notice is about being vulnerable at places. Okay, so possibly it may not fit here. Okay, that's what we have noticed. Potential victims have to educate, just being aware of this. Okay, now if you try to fit in the first one, the next sentence does not make sense. That's what we have noticed, not only in our interview based research, etc., etc. Potential victims really have to educate themselves on being alert. Does not carry the idea forward. It is as simple as just being aware of your surroundings and people lurking in the periphery of your vehicle. Now if you see, if you ignore this blank, okay, does this connect the idea? Yes, how you are vulnerable. So it is related to periphery of the vehicle, and it talks about that when you get inside your vehicle, when you get outside your vehicle, at traffic lights, etc., you are vulnerable. Okay, so that it does not appear that any sentence would fit in this blank, because it talks about the how you are vulnerable at the periphery of your vehicle. That's when you are the highest risk. So basically when you are near your vehicle, that's when you are at the highest risk. Just being aware of those points, I think, can enhance victim safety. If you get that kind of gnawing feeling that something is going to go down, I would listen to that sixth sense. That's what we have noticed, not only in our interview based research, but also from other researchers in the field, media sources and police sources. Media and police, basically, maybe someone might talk about sixth sense, but of course media and police will not talk about the sixth sense. Okay, so we can eliminate this option also. Yeah, media, like, so okay, we can understand research in the field can talk about this sixth sense aspect, but media sources, police sources will not talk about it. If you put in this sentence, right, it says that we are vulnerable at the periphery of the vehicle. Okay, and then it says that these are the different places. More vulnerable when you get inside, when you get outside. Okay, at traffic lights, gas stations, etc., you are vulnerable. That's when you are the highest risk, and that's what we have noticed. So this can be given, this feedback can be given by researchers in the field, media sources, police sources, because they might have witnessed people, right, being attacked when they enter the vehicle, when they exit the vehicle, as at gas stations, traffic lights, etc. Okay, so this looks to be the most appropriate filling, because it makes sense. That's what we have noticed, and by input from different sources. So different sources can give input about all these things based on their observation. So that's the right fit. Alright, so here's the next one. It says that most were first time users of a tablet and a digital app. Okay, so it talks about some tablet and digital app. आगे बढ़े USPs lies in the ethnographic research that constituted the foundation of its development process. Customizations based on learning directly from potential users were critical to making this self-paced app suitable for both a literate and non-literate audience. The user interface, self-paced apps suitable for both a literate and non-literate. The user interface caters to a Hindi-speaking audience who have minimal or no experience with digital services and devices. The content and functionality of the app are suitable for a wide audience. This includes youth preparing for an independent role in life, or a student ready to create a strong foundation of financial management early in her life. Household members desirous of improving their family's financial strength to reach their aspirations can also benefit. We piloted Aage Badhe in early 2021 with over 400 women from rural areas. The digital solution generated a large amount of interest in the communities. So they are talking about some social development app, right, that is called that is by this name, Aage Badhe. Okay, so we need to find where can this sentence fit, right? Most of these were first time users. So this is basically a question which was asked in CAT 2022, right? This was the very first time this thing was introduced. So most were first time users of a tablet and a digital app. So we are given 4 blanks, so we need to find who this most people can refer to. It says that learning from a potential users were critical. Most were first time users, so it does not fit here. Obviously, like when we put in second sentence, it does not fit here that most were first time users of tablet. The content and functionality of the app are suitable for a wide audience. This includes youth and this. Okay, now youth, unlikely that would be first time users, but let's put on hold. Household members desirous of improving their family's financial strength to reach out their applications can also benefit. We piloted Aage Bade in early 2021 with 400 women from rural areas. Now you will have to use some common sense also in this case. See, they are talking about women from rural areas. Okay, so possibly they could be first time users of tablet and app, because 400 women from rural areas, so that is a possibility. Okay, the digital solution generated a large amount of interest in the communities. So the right fit, like if you use logically and structurally, so this would be the right fit. So most were first time users of a tablet and a digital app. So they are piloting this project Aage Bade, and that fits into this flag. So this was the first time like the concept was in this question type was introduced and was asked in CAT 2022. At its core, one upmanship is propelled by deep-seated insecurities, prompting individuals to seek affirmation and validation through comparison. Okay, so some upmanship and something sort of this is given to us. So we'll have to figure out where would it fit. Deep-seated insecurities prompting individuals to seek affirmation and validation through comparison. So there should be some example wherein comparison is made. One, upmanship is a prevalent phenomenon wherein people partake in subtle or overt competition to assert superiority over others. So it says that there is one upmanship is when people like partake in subtle or overt competition to assert superiority over others. So they try to show superiority over others. Deep-seated insecurities in relationships, this conduct materializes as an incessant urge to surpass, overshadow or undermine partners and peers. So this talks about this phenomenon called upmanship, so wherein you try to be superior to others. Okay, so it talks about this thing, and it is prevalent, and in relationships how it is prevalent, that is given here. Despite initially seeming like harmless banter or playful rivalry, its underlying motivations can sow seeds of discord and resentment within relationships. The persistent need to demonstrate one's worth or dominance can create an atmosphere of tension and mistrust, gradually corroding the foundation of mutual respect and understanding. So it talks about this is one-manship that leads to that is because of insecurities and prompts individuals to seek affirmation and validation through comparison. So let's see this. One, upmanship is a prevalent phenomenon. They partake in subtle or overt competition. In relationships, this conduct materializes this conduct may refer to one upmanship. it looks tricky one, like, because deep-seated insecurities prompting individuals to seek affirmation and validation through comparison. So it talks about this its core value. Unlikely it might fit in the fourth one. Okay, we can do it by elimination. So it is unlike that it will fit in the fourth blank. Okay, then if we see this, despite initially seeming like harmless banter or playful rivalry, its underlying motivations can sow seeds of discord and resentment within relationships. If you see this and the third one, these sentences appear to be in link. So it talks about the negative effects of this. Despite initially seeming like harmless banter or playful rivalry, its underlying motivations can sow seeds of discord and resentment, and the persistent need to demonstrate one's worth or dominance can create an atmosphere of tension and mistrust. Okay, so it talks about the negative consequences of this, and the given sentence talks about this the reason behind it, right? So it is propelled by deep-seated insecurities. So this talks about the cause. So effect should follow. So we have a structure called cause effect. Now these are effect, right? So this can sow seeds of discord. Okay, this persistent need, it is create an atmosphere of tension. So these are effects. So definitely it has to be before, the cause has to be before. The cause is insecurity, right? So the cause has to come before and then the effect. In relationship, this conduct materializes as an incessant urge to surpass, overshadow or undermine partners and peers. Now this basically does not give the effect of this. Okay, see, it talks about, it introduces the concept, what is one-upmanship, what people do in this, and in relationships this conduct. So this conduct refers to one-upmanship. So by eliminating, we can say that, see, this describes one-upmanship and how this is impacted, how this impacts in relationship, how does this occur in relationship. So one-upmanship materializes as an incessant urge to surpass, overshadow. So it talks about what is one-upmanship, right? What is one-upmanship in relationships. Okay, so this further describes it. Then it gives the cause, right? At its core, one-upmanship is propelled by deep-seated insecurities prompting individuals to seek affirmation. So it talks about why it happens, and these two talk about the effects. So ideally it would fit in this case because it's a cause. So cause means why it happens. So why will fit in here, and then talks about the effects. So initially it will appear to be a harmless banter, but it leads to seeds of discord and resentment within relationships. So it destroys the relationships, and there is an atmosphere of tension and mistrust, etc. So it would fit in option 2. So it was a tough one, and like again, understanding the structures, cause and effect structures. Cause will come first, effects will be described later. So using that, you can eliminate options 3 and 4 because both are effects. The given sentence gives the cause. So cause is presented, that means 3 and 4 eliminated. Among 1 and 2, if you put in 1, it does not make a link between the sentence after it. But if you put in 2, the first 2 sentences make a link, and then we say that it defines one-upmanship, and then how it is in relationship, and then it gives the reason behind it, right? It is propelled by deep-seated insecurities, and then it gives the effects of this. So if you are preparing for CAT and other MBA entrance examinations, we have launched the mock test packs for it. in which we will include mocks for all exams. Okay, so we will have 15 full length plus 10 sectionals for mocks for CAT, and apart from that we will have mocks for NMAT, 10 mocks, SNAP 20 mocks, ZAT, CMAT, MHCT, CUT, MyCAT, XGMT, SRCC, all the exams that you can think of. We shall be bringing mocks for all these exams. So if you are interested in this, you can enroll in the same. And we have got a good reception of this series. A lot of students have been asking for our courses for CAT. We already have a course running for CAT, but there are some students who wish to enroll in a fresh batch, and moreover the ones whose concepts are already clear, basics are already clear. So for them we plan that we will launch a crash course in September. So please do subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media platforms, so that when we announce about this batch, you can enroll in it at the earliest and prepare for CAT and other exams in using that course. So here are a couple of questions for you to answer in the comments of this video. So 2 questions, read the paragraphs and the sentence, and let me know in the comments that in which sentence would the in which blank would the sentence fit, and also comment your score in the comments of this video, that how many of the questions were you able to solve correctly, how many of them you did not get right. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this series and this session, and you learned how to answer the questions. It is not just about knowing the theory or the genre in deep. It is about understanding the sentence structures. If you understand the structures well, you can answer the questions. These questions like para jumbles, para summary, okay, odd one out can be answered well if you have good reading habits. So that's for today's class. Thanks for watching this video. Have a great day. Goodbye.